Hey everyone, Dr. Frankie here, and I am here to talk to you all about whether you should break up with your partner. And for those of you who have been following me for a while, you're pretty familiar with kind of the content that I put out there. But for folks who are seeing me for the first time, I am a clinical psychologist, a professional matchmaker, a dating and relationship expert, and a board certified sex therapist. So I talk about everything under the umbrella of relationships, dating, sex, romance, that kind of thing. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel, comment below if there's something that I share today that really resonates for you. If you have questions, please post below. If there's anything about what I talk about that you think would be helpful to somebody else, please share it. And if you want to check out more about what I have out there in the world, please visit me at littlegaybook.com and littleblackbookmatchmaking.com. And I will just jump into today's topic. Should my partner and I break up? When it comes to our friends or family members or even TV characters, the choices we should make about relationships usually seem really obvious. Like, do you two even like each other? You're clearly miserable. Break up already. When it's our own relationship, though, things tend to seem much less clear cut. There are all these extenuating circumstances, and the idea of ending a relationship feels really final. Alternatively, we may feel we have an overly itchy breakup trigger finger, especially if you're a more avoidant attachment style. Every conflict or disconnect may leave you feeling like you should leave. How do you actually make an informed, thoughtful, and healthy decision about whether it's time to end a relationship? Here's my take on some questions you should consider. What's the core issue? If you're thinking about whether you need to break up, the first step is to take a hard look at why that is. There are dozens, maybe infinite reasons why there might be concern about the future of your relationship. A recent conflict, an ongoing pattern of conflict, addiction issues, a feeling of unmet needs or wants, cheating, unequal distribution of domestic labor, communications issues, which is a pretty common one, a disconnect about the amount of sex you have in your relationship. The list can go on and on. None of these reasons themselves are actual indicators that you definitely should or should not break up. Here are some issues that, if they're present in your relationship, should be taken very seriously and urgently as a reason to end things. Yeah, I know that sounds really harsh, but these are really serious, harmful, toxic behaviors that nobody should be subjected to. Your partner exhibits a pattern of control or manipulation with you, trying to control what you do, who you see, how you dress, how you spend your time. If you feel fear or dread related to your partner, even if it's only when they're upset and other times they're really loving. If you find yourself hiding or omitting parts of your relationship or your fights because you know they would concern other people in your life or your friends wouldn't really understand. If your partner threatens to hurt themselves, you, or a third party, if they don't get their way, even when it's because they're triggered or mentally unwell. All these are things that should be taken very, very seriously and are unlikely to be able to be worked through with time and communication, even if they were. At what cost, right? Outside of those issues, most things fall into a very expansive gray area where they could be a reason to end a relationship, or they could be something you can work through. This is completely individual to each couple. Some people will break up over something that seems totally trivial to outsiders, and it's the right decision for them. Some couples will stay together through cheating or betrayal, and it's what's best for their relationship. Everybody's different, right? Every relationship's different. The first step, though, is to name what's going on. Although there may be a dozen things happening in your relationship, what's the major thing that's got you looking at the door? What's the outlook for possible change around this issue? That's the next question you should be asking yourself. Some issues might be genuinely intractable. If, for instance, your partner is going to move across the country for work and you aren't sure that you're either interested in moving or available to do your relationship long distance, that's not something that's subject to change. It's really more of a tough decision that you and you alone can make. Many issues, however, hang in the balance of potential future improvement. Your relationship with alcohol bothers your partner and they want you to change it, or you frequently find yourself fighting about your partner's difficult family, and you want them to set better boundaries. One question to ask yourself, if you're looking at the possibility of breaking up, is whether the situation that's bothering you could change at all. Sometimes this is an external change and asks for a patience on your part. For instance, if your partner is suffering because your partner is so stressed at their toxic job, could it all change on a dime if your partner is able to get a different manager or a different job altogether? More often, the possibility for our relationship to improve is about us, the people that are actually in it. So the real question much of the time is, what are we willing to do or change? Much of the time, we're hoping this is something our partner will do. Decide to listen to us more, agree to go into therapy, get a better work-life balance, and hold better boundaries with the friend who makes us really uncomfortable. And by all means, if those things are a consistent issue in your relationship, then your partner's willingness to change is an important factor, right? So your partner's willingness to try to do things differently are they willing to do things differently? It's a question you want to ask yourself. Have they offered to do things differently? Have they demonstrated follow through when they say that they're going to do things differently by aligning their actions with their words? Often, though, in our hurt and emotional exhaustion, we tend not to ask ourselves what we're willing to do or change. If you're willing to be brutally honest with yourself and really listening to what your partner has told you about their end of the things, is there anything you could do differently that would change the momentum of the current bad situation? If so, are you willing to do it? Even situations that are objectively our partner's fault, like if our partner cheated on us, or are ones in which we hold some accountability for whether the relationship moves forward at all. Your partner could do and say everything you want them to in order to apologize for, heal, and move on from the harm of cheating. But if you aren't willing to, eventually, after it's been earned, let go of resentment and move on too, then the relationship is over. And there's no point in trying to stay together. Is that something you're willing to try to do? Because remember that resentment it's a tough one to come back from. It's possible the answer is no, and that's okay. You're not willing to. You're not willing to try to do that. We're allowed to decide to let relationships end for our own well-being, but it's important to be really honest with ourselves if that's what we're doing. What have you already tried? If the problem in your relationship or the problems in your relationship are things that could potentially change, we often feel that it doesn't matter anyway, because we've already tried everything we can think of. What do we actually mean when we say that? Often, and I say this without judgment, it ends up meaning that we've already fought about this issue a lot. That isn't a bad thing. Communication is necessary to solve a problem, right? But it's surprisingly easy to have ineffective communication, which can often devolve into endless arguments that are kind of circular. First, ask yourself whether the communication about this issue in your relationship has been clear, healthy, and direct. It's possible that no matter how much you feel like you've gone over and over the problem, your communication has been passive aggressive or indirect. And so your partner hasn't been set up for success in trying to address the issue. Second, ask yourself what the goal of the communication was. Did you have discussions about how to solve the problem, oriented towards action, or were they discussions more about sharing emotions or even blaming? One thing we can sometimes forget about communication is that while it is absolutely fundamental, it's meant to serve as a starting point to take action. It's important to communicate about your needs and your wants, especially to let someone know they aren't being met. But that's only the first step. Ideally, we'd also make asks or a plan about how things can change, commit to actions related to those asks, and check in on the progress of those things. This is what's involved: working on the relationship or working on our issues. Talking about it is only the step by which you determine what needs to be worked on. If this step into actually doing the work sounds overwhelming or confusing, it may also be a sign that talking to a relationship therapist or coach could be helpful in navigating the issues you're currently facing. Would you be willing to stay in this relationship if nothing changes? While it's an oversimplification to say that people don't or can't change, it's not an oversimplification to say that many of us enter and stay in relationships that don't meet our needs because of an idea we have about how they could look in the future. While people and relationships can and do improve over long term, it takes time and a lot of hard work if it happens at all. And it may actually not happen. Dramatic short term changes is even more unlikely, bordering impossible. And I can say that. I'm a psychologist and I've worked with thousands and thousands of people, and behavioral change is tough, especially in a short term. Without calling into question the importance of working on our stuff and the many relationships that have gone through transformative difficulties and ended up being stronger because of it, it's important to consider this question. Would you be willing to stay in this relationship if nothing meaningful changes? If the answer is yes, although I would have complaints or would change my behavior accordingly, then you likely don't need to break up. If the answer is no, then you should seriously consider what that means for you and communicate clearly to your partner that your relationship is on the line. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in and listening to what I had to say today. And I hope you found it helpful. And again, I want to encourage you to comment below, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will see you all next week. Take care.